Let's go, IC people. Well, today is a special edition of the ICP conference talks. We've got Ray from Catalyze here with us today.
Hi.
And so, most of our guests have been guests who got to speak on stage at the ICP community conference this past May. Ray was invited, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it, but he's about to do one of the biggest SNS launches in the ecosystem coming up very soon. And in light of that, we wanted to give him a bit of a highlight and a spotlight because we missed him this year at the conference, but hopefully he'll make it yet next year, right, Ray?
Yeah. I think hopefully things will work out, better this next year in terms of my availability.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And so, for this call, since we're not going to have a recording from you at the conference, we're thinking that we'll start just by getting a little bit of background of your journey from hearing about the IC to creating Catalyze and to getting to the point where it is today, where you have this impending SNS launch. And then after that, we'll go we'll have a little bit of discussion and go into Q&A. And for everybody listening, if you have a question for Ray while he's talking, just at any time, go ahead and comment on YouTube, and then we'll answer it live. And so without further ado, Ray, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your journey on the IC?
Sure. So thank you, everyone, for participating and listening. It was about 3 years ago that the company was called Oblivion Software, and we were building an application called WeAct, which was supposed to be a lightweight mobile application for different causes, environmental causes, things like that. And we were getting ready to deploy an alpha when we started to think broader about the use case and privacy and personal data ownership. People who are engaged in activism, want anonymity, they need security, and they had been using other traditional web tools, and we thought, okay, we built something comparable. And then we started thinking, well, maybe we should do something more than just comparable. We should think outside the box. And so in the beginning of 2020, I started researching blockchains. I'm a researcher by trade, so I was 20 years at Gartner Inc. Before that, as a researcher and a director. And so I spent a lot of time looking at blockchain in my previous profession, and then just kind of rolled over into startups, and then went back to researching again for blockchain. And after looking at a lot of different chains throughout 2020, by the time we got into 21, we'd already released something in a mobile app format, and we needed to make a decision on when we were going to go from an early alpha to production. What is this thing going to be? And we looked at a couple of chains. Definity kept coming back because of what I told them when we interviewed for our first grant, is the normalcy of it, which is probably a really word and not a very weird word to use, but it just felt like a normal way to build applications. There wasn't any oddness to it. The user didn't have to go through any kind of weird gymnastics to use the application. And so it became very enamored with the vision of, billions of people using this thing, and seamlessly, to the point where you don't even talk about it being a blockchain application. It's just an application that does something that you need to have done. And so, in the late spring, we started talking to Definity directly. They happened to have a hackathon, and so we tried to join it, but we were not successful. We didn't know Motoko. We didn't have anybody who could learn it fast enough. And we had the idea to do a proof of concept of WeAct on Definity, on ICP, but we couldn't find developers because they were the ones that could do it were already in the hackathon, doing something. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a bummer.
Was this the Supernova hackathon, or?
Yeah, it was the first one.
Very first, that's what I thought.
I think. Well, yeah, that was it.
That was like middle of last year.
We just, so Definity, being very persistent, said, hey, I noticed that you didn't submit it. Like, yeah, well, we didn't ever start. We couldn't build a team, and we're going to be doing our mainnet soon, and we have a fund that's going to be put together for grants. So you should put in a grant application. and maybe that'd be a better way of doing it. And so we did it thinking, well, we're never going to hear back from them. I mean, they've got all this stuff going on, launching a mainnet. We're going to be just one of a million people just asking for some time. And they were made good on it. We're one of the first 5 teams in the whole ecosystem to get any kind of grant. We worked with Rick Porter initially. We talked to him like, how do you do this thing? And, what is Motoko? Can we, how do we use it? And he really educated us on it. And he launched Discover not long after mainnet, a couple months. So talking to Rick was really invaluable. He convinced us, if we weren't already there, this is the right thing to do. This is the right chain to build on. And then kind of educated us on what it was going to be like to move from a Android, iOS, Web 2 project to something running on a blockchain. And so we spent the summer of 21 doing the grant project, and we built out the whole back end for the basic bones of WEAC on the IC. This is a long story. I'm sorry. It's our origin story. And we finished it, and we're going, well, now what are we going to do? The grant money we used, we built it, we have this thing. And during the process of building it, and the reason Catalyze exists, and this probably sounds like a smoke blowing comment, but it's true. The people who we were talking to in the community said, hey, this is really cool, and activism is really important, but did you ever think about broadening the audience? Like, we're all using Discord right now, and that seems weird. And it wasn't just we IC, it was we blockchain. Like, we are all across this, planetary system of blockchains using the heck out of Discord and Telegram, and they don't run on blockchain. And as far as we can tell, there's no plan to move those platforms to blockchain. That seems disingenuous given what we're trying to say to our customers about using our app that's comparable to a Web 2 app. And we're like, yeah, that's a big mountain to climb, and that takes a lot of money. I mean, to build a Discord takes a lot of money, but they encourage us to, small steps and focus on the key things that the IC can do differently. You're not going to compete with Discord feature for feature out of the gate. It's a decade in the making, but you can do something different and find those kind of holes in the marketplace. And that's really how Catalyze was born. I mean, we just made the decision late summer, early fall of 21. We wrote a white paper really. And then we just started fundraising. We need capital to get this going. And we started doing these. We started doing AMAs and talking to people and saying, would you use this? And what would you want to see it does uniquely, versus a Discord or a Telegram? And then, beginning of 22, we closed our first round, a seed round, a little under $1 million, and we were off to the races. And as, the rest of it is just this, march through learning. We decided to go with Rust. We had more skills there.
Easier to find talent.
Yeah, it was a little bit, at the time. I mean, now there's a lot of Motoko developers, but at the time, it was very similar to the hackathon. Anybody who was really exceptional at Motoko was already, involved in something else. They didn't have time to really jump into this in most cases.
Yeah.
So we went that. So it was a lot of learning, and we chose Svelte for our front end. So I think part of Catalyze's initial journey, and I think for those of you who've been patiently waiting for us to release things and update things, we picked a technology basket that was a bit more challenging, front end and back end, to build on. We think it's going to serve us well longer term, especially the Rust decision. But Motoko is great, and I anticipate we'll be using Motoko in spots here as well and have a mixed environment. I mean, most major apps, if you look at Twitch and Discord, they'll use 2 or 3 different languages and different. I mean, it's a hodgepodge. I mean, sometimes you look at that and go, wow. But they use a lot of different technology to make these machines work, so to speak. But yeah, that was kind of our journey, is learning new things as we're building. And then we just kept on going. And there really wasn't anything that we tried to build that we couldn't build, on the IC. Data's on there and all of that. And it was what we thought it was going to be when we had that grant interview. This is just normal. We're building an application, and we don't have to think too much about what we're using to build it with, other than certain rules and requirements you have to follow. it was, a relatively straightforward experience. If we were a little bit tardy in releasing updates and changes, more we were trying to do very hard stuff, as you and I have talked about, building a Discord analogous platform, not a killer, just something that's analogous to a Discord, is a big undertaking. And it's probably scarier than we gave it credit for.
I mean, I thought it was crazy first time I heard about it.
Right? It's like, it's easy to say it. Oh, I started saying it's like Discord, or it's a Discord alternative, because it was the easiest, shortest way to say what we were doing. Yeah. But in reality, we're not trying to overnight displace Discord. And I don't think anybody, unless you've got $100 million in the bank, can reasonably expect to do that. And even then, there's no guarantee. You've got to execute. But it was a construct, an idea of what would this be like? What am I to see when I go into Catalyze if this guy told me it's like Discord?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we've been doing. And then we've been now feathering in, more, Web3 things like wallets and NFT minting and airdropping and token airdropping and NFT avatars and NFT gated communities. We even have Neuron gated communities that we haven't rolled out yet that'll come out after SNS. So, we started off with a construct which is like Discord, and now we're differentiating it by adding things to it natively that you'd have to have 4 or 5 different add-ons to Discord to support, if you could do it. And those things usually cost money. And there's complexity, right? I mean, again, as an analyst working with IT companies and corporations, vendor management is a challenge. And it's also a challenge for small startups, where if they've got 4 or 5 add-ons to a platform, there's not one throat to choke, as I like to say. Something could break any day with one of those add-ons to Twitter or an NFT gating tool. It crashes, it goes down, some bot gets corrupted or hacked, and now you got to run around trying to figure out which thing broke that is now causing problems for my Discord instance. And so we figured, or we assumed, we hypothesized that wouldn't it be a lot easier if this was all native in the platform, and you didn't have to pay for all of these add-ons, if you wanted to have NFT gated channels, or you wanted to, have compound NFT access where they have to own 2 or 3 NFTs to get into the premier triple diamond channel of your group. Wouldn't it be just easier to just upload the 3 NFTs they have to have in a simple screen and hit, go, and it's done, versus having some app you've got to configure, outside of the platform. So that's what we're doing now, and we'll continue to do afterwards. But yeah, I mean, the journey was understanding crypto, blockchain. Can we use it? Yes. Which one? We picked IC, and then it's, ambition of what you wanted it to be, setting people's expectation on that ambition, right? Because you're always like, oh, we're going to do this, and I'll make a flying car for $5. You can't make a flying car for $5. It's not going to be safe.
Yeah.
But you can try to build something that is comparable to what people use every day, but put your own fingerprints on it. And I think what you'll see from Catalyze going forward is more of that, more of what we think is interesting, compelling, and hopefully very useful for people in these ecosystems to use, and not trying to, Discord just dropped a new feature last week that they spent $18 million developing, as far as I know, and we're just going to go match that right away. That's not how you win in this space.
Well, yeah, thanks for, I agreed, and I think we'll dive more into that, especially that interesting intermix between Web 2 and Web 3 platforms. But thanks for sharing that background. Actually, you and I have had a lot of conversations this year, and I didn't know some of that. Like, honestly, so I've been with the ecosystem since Genesis. Like, I encountered ICP when I got YouTube notification for the Genesis launch. I wasn't even aware that there was a whole hackathon beforehand. When I think of hackathon in the IC, I think of Supernova as being the first one. But you're saying there's one even before that, before Genesis, before they launched the network mainly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was May or June of 2021, right when the mainnet launched. There was, I don't know if it was a hack. I think it was just grants. So I think it was grants. Maybe there was a hackathon too. So I may have
Maybe
I'm
like
not sure
building an
about.
MVP and then getting a grant for
Yeah, it
completing.
was something like that.
Yeah.
But I know for us, our personal experience was around. No, there was a hackathon. I take it back. There was a
Yeah.
hackathon before, and yeah, I'm not losing my mind. It was the Dev Post. The
Okay.
Dev Post. Yeah, I think they did. They did it with Dev Post, and I found it. I think through them, through Dev Post. I was researching it. Now it's coming back to me. I say, wow,
Yeah,
3 years in
yeah.
crypto is like it feels like dog years, like 3 years ago
Oh,
or
you're
two.
an OG of an OG. Yeah, you're one of
Yeah,
the.
I mean, it's 2 years and it feels like 2,000 years. But yeah, it was, I think, a Dev Post hackathon. Definity was sponsoring it. And that's where we found them again. Like we'd already found them via research. And then I go, oh, I get emails from Dev Post. Whenever there's a hackathon, I get an email and I'm like, I don't know what half this stuff is. And we don't know half these things. Um, and then oh, wow, Definity's on there. So you feel like, oh, that's the one I should take a look at. So that's how it started. Their own hackathons where they proctor the whole thing. I think
Yeah, yeah,
Supernova was the first one, but a lot of chains who don't want to build the infrastructure to run and manage their own hackathon will use dev posts and they'll just throw. It's almost like a bounty kind of thing. Like, hey guys, we're
yeah.
X chain or Microsoft wants you to build an extension to Teams, and they'll just run a hackathon for 45 days on there. It's a useful tool. That's where we started. We couldn't find anybody, and then the rest you've already just heard of how everything played out after that. So that
Yeah,
is the
and I think it's kind of cool that you're building a platform to kind of let a community catalyze the growth of a DApp and a DAO, and kind of evolve into a
yeah.
DAO, and that's almost part of your own story. Like it seems like this was a really community led from the beginning. The whole transition from WeAct to Catalyze, it's kind of like it's almost like something's giving a little bit giving birth to itself in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like when I first heard about Catalyze and well, I heard of WeAct. I remember that being around. I was like, oh, that's cool. But then, they didn't think too much about it. And then I saw that the rebrand to Catalyze and kind of
Yeah.
the really useful description of Discord for Web3. I was like, okay, obviously I can see the value in that because pretty much every single Web3 project I know about uses a Discord, and it would make a lot more sense for that to be native on chain. But also that's like a huge scope of a thing to go after. So I almost just assumed, oh, this must have been started by, like there's a lot of people out there, just random people who want to make these big visions come true. What really, for me, solidified like my excitement about Catalyze was getting to know you better. And so I want to rewind a little bit. Why don't you share? Because you kind of glossed over that, right? You're like, okay, I used to work in Web 2 as a consultant with Gardner and all of that, and then I went to Web 3. So explain your background a little bit. And I mean, there's lots of things you could have done. Like, why did you choose this route? Like entrepreneurship is one of the most difficult ways to try to make money. Entrepreneurship in Web 3 is the most volatile place for it. So like, what brought this very sensible, numbers-minded guy to where he is today on like this niche network, trying to do something crazy at the cutting edge of the SNS and all this new tech.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So my background Catalyze and pre-Oblivion software, and then why. So the why is kind of the job that I had before. So the I like to speak in analogies and or examples, and so Gartner is like writing about baseball, right? You're looking at how the game is played. As a Gartner analyst, if you're not familiar with Gartner, what Gartner does as a company is we write research on almost every aspect of information technology, from huge, supercomputing systems down to mobile device management and strategy, governance, obviously blockchain technologies, advanced technologies, AI. And the customer base for Gartner is like global 2000 companies, but also
Mm-hmm.
small and medium sized companies. And the job that we had there was to advise them on how to win at baseball, how to win at technology, making the right investments at the right time, how to train their staff, how to develop a strategy and execute it that will drive the success of the business. Right. Chief information officers would be the key target buyer for Gartner, but any IT professional down the chain was somebody we would talk to. And I spent a lot of time working with CIOs, IT directors, product managers at Apple and Microsoft and IBM, and even people at Slack before it was called Slack, um, about whether it's how to consume and use technology as a user or as a vendor, how to position your product, understanding what's involved in marketing and building your brand. So we did it all, the componentry of the product, who's going to buy it, where you should price it. And there's something called a magic quadrant, which Gartner is famous for, where we basically size up markets. Who are the leaders? Who are the followers? Who are the upstarts? And there's a whole criteria that goes with it. It's a very complex model. And we also do market forecasting. How big is the mobile app market going to be? How big is the smartphone market going to be in 2025? That kind of stuff. So that's the job as a consultant. My analogy is like you're writing about baseball. I wanted to play baseball. The people on the other side of the phone call, the people that I was advising, they would leave our meeting, go off and launch these amazing products, and they would create these whole new industries. And you can sit there for so long and say, look, I'm not getting any younger. And, if I'm going to make a shot at trying to play the game, I better do it now. And like everything else, some of it's timing. Unfortunately, right when I started doing this, COVID hit. So,
and the bear market was all,
yeah. And a bear market. So, yeah. I've had my baptism by not even fire. I don't know what's worse than fire. I mean, it's like something lava, I guess. Lava. Baptism by a tank full of spiders. But whatever it wasn't what I anticipated. And so, yeah, the first year or two was just kind of slogging through and trying to, like everybody else, stay safe and survive. And then, and that precipitated, what we've already talked about. So as an analyst, that's what I would do. I would meet with either CIOs or product managers at the vendors, and we would talk about what they needed to get done to be successful. What were their key performance indicators, without being too jargony, and just be a sounding board for both sides of the aisle, the buyer and the seller of technology. And I did it for a while. And I as an analyst, I covered all the core technologies that make up the internet. So a lot of the plumbing, I covered a lot of the plumbing of the internet, how that technology was going to transition inside corporations, inside applications, how it was going to change the face of application development, what we thought of public and private networks. And I did a lot of that kind of research. And then the main focus of my job at Gartner as a researcher was collaboration. So collaboration technology, high performance teams, why do people work together? Collaboration in a corporate setting is different than in a volunteer setting where corporation is kind of top down. You have to collaborate because that's your job and you're going to get reviewed and maybe lose your job if you're not collaborative. So I spent many years and built up a team that focused on collaborative technology, collaboration science, right? So that's why when I did leave and I decided I wanted to play baseball, it felt natural to me of all the things I could have done. I could have tried to do a DeFi thing. Should we build an NFT marketplace on some chain or whatever, people were doing? It's like, well, no, I know a lot about why people work together, why they enjoy working together, playing together. Our work with activist groups and climate change groups, they're all volunteers. It's all bottom up. And I thought, wow, there's a lot of similarities between people who are trying to, clean up a beach or clean up the environment, educate people on why that's important, educate them on the good things that'll happen to everyone if we do clean up the environment. This is a lot like evangelizing blockchain.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks everything's fine if they don't believe that climate change is an issue. So why do I want to even do this? And why do I want to have my gas tax 10% more than it is? What am I getting out of that? Why can't I just keep doing what I'm doing? And it's the same kind of addressing the argument or concern and then moving forward to getting people to buy in that, that there's a world that benefits me that I didn't see when I first looked at it, right? And the same thing I think is true with blockchain. It's like, well, I already have an app that does the thing you do, and it works on my phone and whatever, and I don't have to do anything. I don't know what a wallet is. I mean, there's that kind of resistance for some people. They don't see the the capability of it on the surface. They need to be convinced, and that's what I think. Everything got tied together. Right, I'm into collaboration. That's my thing. I bring with other people into the team who also worked in different community building, projects. So that was going to be our specialty. And as a corporation, even as we turn Catalyze over to the community and it becomes a DAO and it takes on a life of its own, we will continue to be focused on that idea of connecting people in different ways, with different little apps and things that we might build along the way, because that's what we're going to be known for. We're not going to be somebody who makes, cars and dinner plates. They have nothing to do with each other. And you're not building up any kind of competency or reputation. You're just like a conglomerate. Well, we do a little bit of everything. Well, that means you do nothing, right? And when you're small, you have to have an expertise, I think, too.
Yeah, and that's actually a thought I've shared before too. It's like volunteers all over the world contribute to open source code code that essentially runs the whole web. So if a bunch of volunteers that are strangers can change the world by creating the foundations of the internet itself, that means that there are complex, useful things that can be done. And when you just get people together like that. So it's cool to see that you're thinking along the same lines, you're taking in a different scope. And, while you weren't at the conference, hearing about your background, I'm hoping that everybody listening is getting kind of a part of the sense that there was at the conference, which is like what gives me the best bullishness of our ecosystem is the people in it. So like when you're at the conference talking to people and even just noticing around people on Twitter who are really excited and involved in the ecosystem, you see a bunch of really brilliant, hardworking people who are the ones thinking about the future and seeing where it goes, seeing those trends. I mean, that was literally your job, is seeing these technology trends and navigating them.
I mean, I did it for,
we're all in good company. I think the token price went down. A lot of the people who were there just for token pumps and all of that more shallow Web3 stuff, they left. And then we looked around at each other and we're like, hey, those of us left are all pretty cool people. We want to change the world, and we're here for the tech and what it can do to make the world a better place. And we all seem to know our stuff. People like Rick, yourself, all the other guests that we have on the show, they're all exceptional people. So it's great to just hear a little bit about your background. But yeah, now getting to the transition of it, I mean, you kept writing about baseball. You want to play baseball. Well, you've been playing it. How has it been? I mean, you said baptism by a dumb
spider box. You're the spider box, and pick your I mean, kidding aside. I mean, before I was a technology analyst, I was a bond trader and equity analyst during a market crash. So I've been kicked around before, and so it didn't bother me that it was baptized by fire. I think it was a frustration of we couldn't move fast enough, right? You couldn't raise enough capital, you couldn't get enough people on board, and so it was frustrating that my mind goes a mile a minute. I have more things that I want to do than there's time to do it. That's that old gag. And it's been, I think, overall really fun. It's probably not a word a lot of people would choose to describe the last 18 months, especially since FTX and all that baloney. But it's blank sheet, right, man? I mean, you could just do what you want to do, and you invent an idea in a meeting and say, screw it, let's just do this. Let's make this happen. Capital is always a challenge. I mean, startups are capital hungry things. And between seed investors and our very kind NFT investors, and we haven't forgotten about you. We'll be taking care of you post SNS. Everyone has helped us in any way they could, even when they're struggling. And I think we look at the ecosystem. We talk about people coming and going. Everybody who's still here, people on this little YouTube thing now watching, everybody in this ecosystem, every big name and every small name that you've heard, somebody's helped them even when they needed help.
Yeah,
they're running out of capital and they're saying, hey, talk to this investor. I mean, that's why we're all still here. It's going to sound like, oh, this is like too sentimental. It's just realistic. I'm observational, right? People help people here. I'm down to my last $10. Here's $5. kind of mentality. That is how ecosystems can get through tough times. It's just pulling together, and they're, eventually, you've got competition in an ecosystem as it matures. There you have to find your space, and when you start getting into revenue generating, times, it's harder to just be that way. You have board of directors and foundation directors that expect things, but at this genesis point in this network, everybody's helping everybody, so it's been great. It's been it's been community driven. I think the better blockchains, even if they don't have 50 million users on their platforms yet, have strong communities, because if you've got a strong community, especially a community of not only users, supporters, but a community of founders, then you do a lot more. And if we're all getting punched in the mouth because the market's down, at least we all know we're in good company, right? We're all getting smacked around. And then we see some of our peers excel and do well. We're happy for them. We're not resentful. I mean, I think that's all part of how this ecosystem has been for me so far. But yeah, I think the baptism part has been more just frustration. We couldn't do more, right? And we had this grand plan. We're going to do the raise a year ago. We're going to do another raise over the summer. We're going to release all these updates in the fall, mobile apps, fix the UI, everything else we're going to do, speed the app up. And then, a few big players in crypto, went, feet up, and everybody kind of shut down.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the pump people that were into the tokens because of the opportunity to make a quick buck. It was the entire economic support system of crypto, not just IC, but every chain. Now we were talking to VCs who are only investing in people that had at least 18 or 20 months of cash on hand. Like, well, if they have that much cash on hand, why are they raising? Why are they going to be raising now? And it's like, well, because we think it's going to be a 2 or 3 year crypto winter. Those are the kind of conversations we were having last fall. Like, people were putting their helmets on, and it's like, okay, this is going to be, file this away under someday. And we're going to invest in projects that already have some kind of traction, and everybody else is going to be, Lord of the Flies, and just try to survive, on their own, eating scraps. And things I think have improved a lot since those, more dour times. But that was character building, as they say. It was hard to keep things going, to slow way down, to preserve capital. Then we got some cash infusion this year and started the year off on the right foot. Made the decision to do SNS, and then we've been, as we always have been, and that will change, if we have a successful SNS. Certainly, we're a back-end company, right? So what does that mean? I mean, it means that the reason Catalyze doesn't look different as much as you would hope it would is because we do a lot of plumbing work on the back end. We're building architecture for the long haul, for scalability, for security, for feature adds that we can do quickly. We never intended for an MVP UI to stay out there in the open as long as it has. We would love to make things faster, different, easier to use, and those are coming. We've redesigned the entire application front to back, and we've been quietly working on that. Yeah, so thank you. We've shared little pieces here and there, but it's going to look completely different. I mean, if you watch any, like, if you're into cars and trucks that people take into a garage and they redo the whole thing and it comes out looking totally different, that's kind of what's going to happen to Catalyze. Or it's a makeover show. Pick your analogy, but what we've done with the feature set, the flow, and certainly making it more attractive, beautiful to look at. We hope people will be very happy with that. And
great.
As we move into post SNS, where we can expand out the front end beautification efforts, people will see hopefully the work that we did on the back end, which is non-glamorous. We push an update out and where is it? I went on the Catalyze. It doesn't look any different. Like, it is very different. It's just you can't see it. It's the way the data is being handled. It's what's happening in the background. We just need to make the outside of the car look as good as the motor in the car that we've built, and that will be what the rest of this year will be about. what you drive, what you experience when you use it, how you log in, how fast it works, and what you can do with it, will all get a lot better.
Great. Yeah. And just to comment on what you talked about with kind of the environment of the IC, I think that, it definitely feels like dog years, like 8 years, 7 years long. But we're only 2 years into this. And think about where Ethereum was 2 years into it. I think these are going to be seen as both the hard times and the good old times in 5 years from now. Kind of like I was talking to Tom Series at Miami, and he was talking about how he went to one of those OG Ethereum meetups, one of the first conferences for Ethereum. There were 70 people there, and he said that he felt the same vibe for ICP of like, yeah, yes, we're small, yes, this is a tight knit, but we're 150 people here. We're gathered, we're excited, we're supporting one another, and it's just that. Like as long as we keep this connection and get through this bear market, like those projects that really take off and then last multiple bull cycles, those are the ones started during the bear cycles. Those are the ones who paid their dues, who understand they've gone through the hard times enough to know that they need to take advantage of the good times while they last, and they don't just blow off through the top like a lot of the projects that start during the bull cycles that just start heavy, think that it's going to be easy forever, and then go nowhere. So I like that you're doing your dues, like I said, doing the plumbing. So like one of the things that you hit on during one of our private calls was you knew how important push notifications were for your platform. Like certain types of like social platforms like Discover can probably get away without push notifications. Specifically for collaboration, you need solid push notifications. You just do. And so that's part of your roadmap. After SNS, you already have it all mocked up. You're going to have native apps for desktop and mobile that will have solid, like probably some of the most solid push notifications we have in the IC. So that makes total sense. Like that's kind of a key part of your MVP. That's just hard to get to, right? From where we started. So it's one of the biggest challenges.
Oh yeah, I mean it's notifications. It's funny. Notifications in Web 2 are features that we take for granted and we find annoying, right? So most people in notifications in Web 2 will try to turn off as many as they can, right? But they know they have them, right? So it's up to them as to what they see and what they don't see and how much noise they're willing to tolerate. But if you take them away or just don't have them because of the architecture you start off with, then it's like, well, wait a minute. Where's my ping, my pop, my sound, my pop-up that I get on this app or that app? I said, well, okay, it's a browser-based blockchain app where the UI is running on chain along with everything else. And it's a little bit harder to make that work consistently. And you learn how to do that over time better. The people who build the chain, the Definity folks, work on that. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, you just touched on, the roadmap. For anyone who wasn't following along, when we talk about Catalyze beautification and front end stuff, it's not like just graphic design and people making it pretty and UI design. It's literally, we're going to have a native OS 10 and Windows client. We're going to have native iOS and Android clients that have the full capability that the chain will be able to offer on those, in that kind of a context. So you don't have to have a tab open in your browser to be doing a thing. It's going to be an icon in your dock or in your menu. It's going to be an icon on your phone's wallpaper, your desktop. And, again, working with companies pre-Catalyze, that experience and having native clients. I mean, the history of the internet has been browser first. You get some type of critical mass, and then you get pulled into, where's your native desktop client? I don't want to have 45 tabs open to do this stuff. And notifications, sound, user experience, whether it's, a desktop app or maybe a progressive web app, I'm still not 100% sold on that. I do think it's a great step in the right direction, but I'm more old school and I'm very picky. But if you're great at progressive web apps, I think you can make them look as good as a native app to a platform. And so I just think that something like that or higher has to be where we go. And so for us, it will more likely be, a native app for platforms that we support, and then using maybe progressive web apps for platforms that there's not an easy way to build a native desktop app for. So if you're in a Linux machine,
that's just a good temporary solution. Yeah, I'm with you.
It is. But you're right. I mean, that's the notification thing doesn't work as well in a browser for a lot of apps, period, regardless of what they're from. And you can just do a lot more in a native app in terms of controls and experience, different sounds for different, actions. Even you rethink how the app is laid out when it's not a browser and you're talking about frames and jumping around frames and tabs. The construct is a bit different when you have a desktop app.
All right, so we're about 40 minutes in, and I've got at least 10 questions from the audience to get to. We're gonna have to go rapid fire.
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
But all right, and this first one, it's one of my favorites. I'm a huge fan of this feature, and frankly, I think you could make enough revenue to cover everything just off of offering this. This is from Marcella Brown. Can you explain how the Web2 bridging capability in Catalyze allows users to connect their chats to Web2 platforms? And I just want to add a little bit of background here. For Code State, we have some WhatsApp groups, we have a Telegram group. I wanted to bridge the two. And there was no service out there that I could just pay for that could bridge the two, except for like one I found that uses the same protocol that Catalyze uses. And it was like $1,500 a month. It was ridiculous because it was made for enterprises. It wasn't made for communities. It wasn't made for community managers. So it's like ridiculous that this is like this whole bridging aspect is a missing gap in our ecosystem. You can't like bridge a chat on Telegram and a chat on WhatsApp or Discord easily right now. And yet Catalyze is doing that out of the box with Discord. So take it away.
Sure. So we do use an open source protocol for chat right now, and it's called Matrix. And we've modified it for our use case for what we're doing with Catalyze and with ICP. And the way it works is that you create a community on Catalyze with channels. So it's almost like a Discord experience. Use that, again, you build your channels and you say, okay, I've got a Discord, server, and I've got a channel called, channel A. And there's a channel called channel A on Catalyze or B or Z. It doesn't matter. We actually build a bridge, between that channel on Discord and the channel on Catalyze. So now whoever's on Catalyze, whoever's on Discord can talk to each other real time, share files and images, GIFs, all of that, video clips, and they can see each other. So whatever door they want to go into or in from, they can. We can do that between Catalyze, chat room channels and Discord, Telegram, WhatsApp, Slack, and something that most people haven't heard of, but it's called Mattermost. And so there are libraries that we use and little bots that allow us to set this up very quickly. Right now, we've been doing it as a beta. So we do it with you. So we talk to your admin and we walk you through what you have to do. We'll automate that so that you can just do it yourself and turn it on right away. We don't charge anything for that right now because, asking for somebody to take their wallet out when you say is a tough way to say hello. So we don't want to do that right away. And since this is still kind of a beta offering, we're not charging for it. Obviously, if you have a 40,000 person Discord or you have 6 different, communities you want to connect to it, then that's a different economic model. And once we turn, the DAO over to the community, we expect that the community is going to want revenue generation. So there's an opportunity for anybody who, is an investor in this thing to have a say on where this all ends up in terms of, hey, this thing can actually generate revenue and it's profitable. And we don't have to charge $1,500 a month, right? I mean, that's the whole point of what I said before about having native features inside of Catalyze. Stop sticking your hand into people's wallets every time you want to do something when they're just trying to get off the ground. Flip side is you've got to be able to keep your lights on as well. So it's a delicate balance, but that's the beauty of doing things on the IC. It's not an expensive enterprise, right? You don't have an excuse to charge somebody $1,500 a month for most things that you would do, unless you just want to have wild profits. So the way it works is very, very simple. It's a little bot we activate on the Discord side or on the Telegram side. And once that's turned on, you can see everybody. Now, if you want to know how it works, how the magic works, what it does, it being Catalyze, is when you connect your Discord channel to the channel on Catalyze, it creates a pseudo directory of everybody from Discord and gives them, you know, a Catalyze handle internally. It's, you still are Joe Smith or whatever your handle is, but we have this record that you don't see, and we can instantly get a directory built out for that other group and commingle it with the directory for the Catalyze group. So it's an instant, seamless thing. When we turn it on, nothing happens. It's one of those Catalyze things where it's like, okay, is something different? I don't know. Nothing happened. There's no alert. There's no message. It just starts to work.
Nice.
And I think we have about 15,000 people, maybe 10 to 15,000 across like a half a dozen Discord communities from the IC that we have connected to their representative communities on Catalyze. And, you know, you don't know who you're talking to, like where are they? Are they in Catalyze or are they in something else? If you click on their avatar and you don't see a profile, that's how you know. It's just, there's no information. So, that person must be on Discord because I'm not getting the Catalyze user profile box to pop up. Why is this important? This is a long answer to an important question. It's a way for people not to throw away all the work that they've done building Web 2 communities. Even if it's for a Web 3 project, you know, if I say, look, give me money and blow up your Discord, that's a tough conversation.
Yeah.
But if I say, look, migrate your people at their own pace, give them reasons to use blockchain, NFT drops, minting, you know, earning tokens, roles that they can get into, moderators, whatever. And they'll come over because they'll see the utility of, if I go through this door, I can earn tokens for my comments. I can get this cool role. I can be airdropped NFTs. I can whitelist my community. And so they start doing it. And it's not just community managers, anybody. I mean, you, as a member of a community, you need to see the value in wherever you're going, right?
Yeah.
This is the same example or situation where you get all excited about a new chat app. Your entire family's on WhatsApp, and you've just discovered some other app. This is amazing. I love it. The graphics are crazy. And then so you just blast everybody with, hi, Ray's now on X chat app, and he would like you to join it. How do those things ever go?
I don't want to download another. I already have to keep up with DMs across 6 different platforms as it is.
Yeah, it doesn't always work that well. And I know why I know, because I'm the guy who does it.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who has 15 chat apps on my phone, inviting his friends and family to try yet another app that I think is better than the 14 apps I asked them to try before. And so I know from experience that, you know, people don't want to run and follow everybody who's like me trying anything that's new.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, right? Well, and so that's why we decided to use it. And then it was also pragmatic, building a full-fledged chat application that did everything we could want it to do. So we could even mention the word Discord as an analogy.
Yeah.
Would have taken like a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, and a lot of money. And we knew we didn't have that kind of runway to invest in building it from scratch and say it's like Discord, but on chain. So we put everything else on chain, every other single feature we could, and just the little chat module is the only piece that's not. And, you know, when we put this up for proposal of having 2 chat solutions or 1 in Catalyze longer term, you know, we would like to have something on chain fully, because there are some advantages, a lot of key advantages to doing that. But even then, maybe giving people the choice, like, okay, what do you want to do versus what we need you to want to do? It's not the same thing, right? We need you to want to use our chat on chain or off chain for whatever reason that may or may not align with what these communities need to do, right? So that's part of our ethos, is understanding the buyer from where they sit and what we're asking them to do to use our stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And from a community manager perspective, and every community manager. So like I went through this Dakota State, and all of us, we just want our community to be accessible. We don't really care for any one particular platform. We just want to get the job done. And so the problem has been, well, if I build it on one platform, everybody uses like only maybe 2 platforms really regularly, really often. So if I was able to say, okay, hey, join our chat, our public chat group through WhatsApp, through Telegram, through Discord, whatever you prefer, I'm going to be vastly increasing my audience base. And yeah, I would happily pay for a service that does that. There is no service that focused on community managers right now that does that. So yeah, when I found that out, and I saw your bridging in action, I tested it out myself. I sent you a really excited email, got on the phone with you, and just started saying like, man, you need to start selling this. Like, just sell this to Web 2. Just forget everything. You like make 20K a month, like this $100 a month per person. Like, people will buy that. And then the conversation's not, oh, shift all the work you've ever done, delete that and move it to a new platform. It just becomes, oh, here's a feature you already want, use it. And then, by the way, we'll give you a nice, awesome chat on crypto that you can, incentivize your people. And then, kind of sneakily just like filter their users over to Web3, because there's going to be exploits on all these other Web2 platforms, other things that drive them away over time. But yeah, so I'm glad we spent a little bit more time on that question, but I want to get a little bit.
A lot more to do. We got to hurry up. I know.
Tied in with that, we've got Abraham at CRR. Is Catalyze aimed at community builders only on Web3, or is it for anyone who needs to use it?
It's really anyone who needs to use it. Obviously, when they use the term low-hanging fruit, it's the most accessible part of the market. Web3 community builders are going to see, hopefully, utility in it first and foremost, but it really is for anybody. If you want to own your own data, if you want to incentivize people, if you want to try to cultivate your community in a particular way, it doesn't make a difference if you're Web 2 or Web 3. Incentivization, role management, getting toxicity out of your community. Those are all hard things to do with your classic Web 2 application, where all you can do is block and kick people out. There's no way. All you have is a stick. The carrots become expensive. What we're going to do, giveaways constantly on Discord, and airdrop people into behaving the way we want, or being loyal, or whatever that you're trying to achieve. But the beauty of crypto is you can create tokenomics models, and you can create multi-tiered incentive systems that drive behavior and reward people for their patronage, reward them for their loyalty, and see how they're participating, because at the end of the day, everything's a ledger. It's the ultimate accounting system. It's going to give you huge amounts of data on how engaged your community is, what promotion or thing that you're doing, did it work, did it not work? Even as a vendor, is this feature valuable or not? You can do focus grouping. I mean, you can do a lot of what would be traditionally very expensive market research on your own community through the tokenomics engine that our platform, or any platform that uses something like that, would provide. And so the answer is it's anybody, and we really hope it's everybody ultimately, because we want this to be big. We want Catalyze to be useful to everybody in the IC, everybody who loves blockchain in general. But the real target audience or opportunities, we hope Catalyze in some small way makes the IC bigger, because we attract people to it who are not into crypto at all, right?
That's the
not
key.
Just somebody who got sick of Near, I'm tired of Cosmos, and let me just give ICP a try. We need, as an ecosystem, to take those people who have no idea we're having these conversations, they don't know anything about this jargon, is jargon to them, and we want them to come to our town and stay. And so our job ultimately, as we iterate through these features and we normalize a lot of this functionality, so it's not just crypto heavy, everybody wants to use it because it's usable. They see the value in it, not because it's runs on chain A, and I love chain A.
Perfect. Yeah, and connected with that, I mean, you're talking about how the reward system is a key part. So we have Alfredo here. How does a token-based reward system work in Catalyze?
Sure. So the way the token model works is that you basically earn tokens for participating, and the level of participation, as it goes up, the token reward goes up. So if you like a post, that's a bot target, right? So if you just have everybody gets like a lot of tokens for liking posts, you're inviting bots to come in and just like overwhelm it. So if you go to an AMA and you ask a question and it gets answered, that's something. If you would attend a conference, an online event, that has a higher value to the community than if you just like a post. So what you do is, or what it is It's what we call engage to earn. This is something that Isaac is also familiar with, because something he kind of talked about a year or so ago in a blog and research, that it's a way to reward people for the level of engagement. And engagement, just like on Twitter, you want somebody to retweet your stuff, retweet it with a comment, and so that has more value than just liking your post, or doing a what we call a naked retweet, where they just retweet it and they don't add any value to it, right? And so that model, which has built gigantic social media companies, we are leveraging it in a way, but in a more, I think, a healthier way inside of our tokenomics model. So the more you do, the more that I want to say tangible sounds like a job, but the more engaged you are with the work or activity you perform in your community, the more tokens you will earn. And why is that important? Because communities transition from audiences when the community members take over the community. And there's no way to incentivize that by just airdropping NFTs or giving away free money to people on Discord indefinitely, because that's what you do with an audience, right? The Romans did that during the gladiator games. They would throw bread into the audience to people who had no food.
First airdrops.
So they would sit there. Exactly. So while rich people would bet on gladiators to slaughter each other, and they say, hey, in addition to your ticket, here's some stale bread I'm going to throw at you. And we launch t-shirts now. But you get the idea, is that you want them to say, this is my community. I've been rewarded for my participation. I've evolved my role. And as my role goes up in the community and my token earnings go up, or if there's a thing. And so you now have this model that people understand, and you go from being an audience that expects to be entertained to be compensated for their time, right? That's what an audience is, right? I play the guitar is the compensation I give to somebody for buying a ticket and staring at me for 90 minutes or whatever it is. You don't want that. That's not because what happens when the concert's over? As soon as you stop compensating people, the audience leaves. The house lights go on and they're gone. So you want to have an incentive system. And so this is more than we can talk about now. We've built one where you're incentivized to participate deeper and deeper into the community until you have this set of leaders and contributors that I don't say accidentally, but become these things because they were incented to do so, right? You kind of guide them to owning this thing, because what community managers don't want to do is play the guitar forever to keep you coming back, right? They don't want to do that. They want to talk to you and learn from you and engage with you, but they don't want to be the reason you keep coming. Everybody that's there is the reason you keep coming, and how they work together and they talk to each other and how they behave together and the things that they accomplish together. That's a community. Everything else is just using the word community, but it's really an audience that's motivated purely by dollars and giveaways, but not because there's an emotional connection. And Catalyze is smaller to this point, one, because we've still been this extended beta, because we're not trying to do that right now. We don't want 80,000 people who don't know each other or care about each other or have any idea who the hell they are. It's just they're all here, and building communities that last takes time. It's not an explosion.
And you need those
you build an audience. Yeah. Fans can blow up to 40,000 on Twitter or a Telegram channel because of something happening. When you hit a bear market, which we've been in, a lot of those communities we've seen, they're gone. 800 people logged in when there's 40,000 people in the community. So that's an audience that has very few people waiting for the guitar to start playing again. So that's how it's going to work. We'll have very simple videos that'll come out as we're about to launch it. We're not going to launch tokenomics until we do a proposal and everybody agrees that this phase 1 tokenomics model is what they want to see implemented. And then we'll have a separate roadmap for the economics and tokenomics of Catalyze. That will be a series of proposals that we'll release, because we don't want to hit you with too much. We're not going to say, here's 87 different ways you can earn tokens on Catalyze, and you're going to need a spreadsheet to figure out what the heck's going on. That's not how you want to do it. Just like when you have kids, I've got kids that are much older now. you give somebody a job at one chore, they do that well, they understand what the compensation is, and then you make it more complex. It's how we learn. I can't give you 500 moving parts in a tokenomics model and expect you to understand what it all means and how it all fits together. And that's how we hopefully will, feather this in. So it'll be phases.
Great. And so Raul Badillo asks, what is Catalyze's implementation of proof of humanity considered crucial, and does it ensure that community members are genuine and verifiable participants? My understanding is that you don't really have a native proof of humanity, but it's more of you're utilizing Mod Club and some other things. Is that right? Like, I guess this is a topic that's important.
Yeah, it is. And so, right now when you log into Catalyze, you can use your internet ID or, any number of Web 2 logins, your Discord, Google, Apple. You can use email. I don't think we have email turned on right now. But we have been talking to Mod Club for a while about using, their proof of humanity as a screener. We're going to implement it, I believe, first for airdrops. So Catalyze has a whitelist tool you guys haven't seen yet, where you can actually build whitelists inside of Catalyze and then airdrop whatever you want to them. Tokens, ICP, Bitcoin, Ghost, to anything, or NFTs. You can do it for your whole community. You can do it for people with specific roles. You can do it manually. And we're going to use that Mod Club technology to whitelist people for that whitelist flow first. And that'll be the first implementation you'll see of it. And then more broadly, just everybody who comes in the door, how can we do this? Like, it's like the soul thing. We have to, we won't be able, I think the best answer is we shouldn't try to build this just ourselves, that this should be an ecosystem thing. Whether it's digital identity or whatever you want to call it in the IC, I think we need to get, some of the vendors together, and I know some have already been talking about it. Obviously, Mod Club has technology for it, and figure out this problem together. Obviously, the IC Internet ID makes it easy to move seamlessly between applications, and you're booming in and out. But that extra step of are you who you say you are, and if I'm giving you access to something or permissioning or benefits, knowing more or having some technology that is auditable and defensible that you are this individual, not a bot, for example, is something that we'll work on internally. But we'd rather do it as part of a digital identity, proof of humanity initiative across the ecosystem that we all can benefit by. It's like trying to do a social graph just yourself and creating a chat app to get people, if they use the chat app, then they have a social graph. Like, okay, but if nobody else is using your social graph technology, then they're not building much of a social graph. It's just your stuff.
Yeah, and you need to kind of plug in pieces that other people are building. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like even Discord does that. There's got to be an element to that. So like, one company can only do so much, and I like that approach too, because it can be like if there's issues with one, you can swap out the vendor, or add another vendor, alternative vendor. So
yeah, exactly.
It's important to keep in mind. This is a question I've also had, and I know this is probably some more features coming up for this or more strategies. But on Hal asks, how does Catalyze ensure quality and efficiency in task completion through crowdsourcing on the platforms, like when you assign someone a task?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking it, because we don't get a lot of questions about the task engine. We built that thing and then we turned it off for a while as we were redoing the back end. We had a rating system in there in a release that I think no one saw, and we were worried about using it because it felt like a job, right? Okay, I volunteered to do something, and you said you needed a logo built for some promotion, and I did it on time, but you didn't like it. You just didn't like my artwork, and you didn't use it. What are you going to do? You're going to give that person 1 star, and then now that's part of their profile. So this is as much as an answer as a question back to the community. When you're talking about communities and volunteer heavy communities, fans of a thing, supporters of a thing, ratings are tricky. We have the ability to do them, and the easiest thing is to just rate them. So, what I think we can do on this, because I've been thinking about it, like how are we going to turn this on and not just make a lot of people angry about my reputation is ruined. I volunteered and did all and he gave me a 2.
Yeah.
Is look at the things that are more defensible and less subjective, which is, okay, you asked me to build a logo and you needed it by September 15th. I delivered the logo to you September 2nd. I'm going to get a high rating by the system because I delivered it before the deadline. You don't like the mouse with the sombrero that I drew. That's subjective. That's you're saying I don't like this. It doesn't mean that no one likes it. It means that you didn't like it, and it was free. And then it's going to be a timeliness thing. That is easier on emotions when it's like I asked for something, you volunteered to do it, and you did it by this date. That's a way to start. Then you get into I paid you 5,000 cat tokens to do it. So you're going to get rated on quality, timeliness, and a couple different things because I paid you. And in my brain, that's where I've ended up on this ensuring the quality and efficiency is you have a score that will impact everybody in terms of timeliness. Because if you volunteer to do something and somebody's counting on you and you just don't do it, there's going to be a penalty or at least a consequence to that. That's rateable. But the quality of the work, again, it's a volunteer. You can't, tell people, hey, look, you're not an artist. I never said I was. I just said I could draw better than you, and I volunteered to do the logo, and this is what I came up with. But if you start paying people, then it has to be a different flow, what we call modal, in the application, where there's going to be something where you as the requester can say, I have more fields I can rate this person on because I paid them. And it almost becomes like a Fiverr type of environment. But again, it's a tricky thing because what is Catalyze really? Right? Is Catalyze a Fiverr equivalent now where you people are doing work and they're going to get scored? I don't think so. And if it were to become that, it would have to be a proposal based transition to, we think there's a market here for this and the community's decided they want to chase that market. I think in the beginning, it's going to be subjective to you. Now here's how we can do it in the more genericized way of doing it. When we activate matchmaking for crowdsourcing, meaning you don't have to just wait for somebody to come say, hey, I saw your post and I'd like to volunteer. Catalyze shows you people who have the skill that you want, right? The showing of people who have the skill that you want would be driven by the ratings that they have that aren't publicized. So if they're always late and they don't deliver quality work, they're not going to get recommended to you when you need a graphic designer to build a logo, right? If they do, they're going to be at the end of the list. And so this way, it's almost like search terms. So instead of saying, like, when you do a search on any keyword, there's a lot of math that goes into why you're seeing that one first, in addition to marketing money that people spend to make sure they show up high in search lists. But you don't know what that money is. You don't know if somebody spent $14 million to make sure that if you type the word banjo in Google, they're the first one that comes up. Or they're spending $2 million a year on SEO. You don't know that. You just know that that's the first banjo company that you saw. So we can do things like that based on what we call under the surface data, so that when you get recommended for people to do logos on Catalyze for crowdsourcing, they have the scores to back it up. There's a reason that they're there, or there's a reason that they're not. Long answer, but you can see I've been thinking about this for a while. I didn't want it to be where people in their good hearts tried to help, and then somebody treated it like it was a job and said, you suck at this, I'm giving you a 2, and now you're branded as a 2 person forever until you get a bunch of 5s to offset the 2, so you don't have such a low score. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I know that there are other projects working on kind of like micro gigs and different things like that. So this is almost an area where it possibly might take an approach similar to Proof of Humanity, where you plug in a partner or a vendor to offer alternatives. Like if it's a paid gig, maybe somebody else is going to build a decentralized Fiverr on IC, and you plug it in almost as if like how Discover plugs in games, so it feels native. Who knows? But yeah,
we
really
do have a
interesting.
marketplace. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
great.
that's a great point, because we are going to create a marketplace where people can do that. So there's going to be an app marketplace in Catalyze, like a Slack, where you as a startup software vendor, if you don't have critical mass yet, if it's a hackathon thing and you barely have a website, but you have an app that works, we want to create a marketplace for the community where they can say, look, I have a polling tool I built in Motoko. It's really cool. I don't have a website to host it. I don't know how people are going to use it, but I built it and it's cool. That's nice. We'll stick it in our marketplace, and somebody says, okay, I want to activate this polling app in my community. Boom, it's done. You know, you learn from what worked. And this is back to where we started even pre this call. If you want to attract people that aren't in crypto at all, you got to show them stuff that solves problems that they have right now. And this is something that, you know, Slack became very good at, and others as well, where it's like, hey, we're not going to build every gadget and gizmo we could possibly think of in Slack that will go broke doing that. And there are a lot of people who build these gizmos already, and they're just going to build a lightweight version of that gizmo and stick it into Slack. And if you want the full version, you go to like Asana and you get the full Asana. But if you want to just plug into Asana through this little window inside of Slack, you just do it. Sometimes they charge you for it. Sometimes the vendor doesn't. They just want the exposure of like, hey, I'll give you a taste of Asana inside of Slack. But if you fall in love with it, then you're going to need to come over and write the check and get the full experience. And we think that, you know, in our small way might be helpful for people who are just coming up, and even established vendors in the ecosystem. It's like, you know, I have a standalone Starbucks, but I still put Starbucks in malls because I can make money there too, right? And so that's the whole thing. You go where your customer is. If they don't come to your building and they're in some other building, you probably should put a kiosk there, or you're missing out on an opportunity. And if we can, you know, have enough of a mall status and Catalyze, we hope people will patronize this marketplace and think to put their apps in there, because we're all chasing eyeballs in the end. And if I can help 15 vendors in the ecosystem by having kiosk versions of their app in Catalyze, I'm happy to do it. And I know the model works.
Great. Yeah, that's exciting. I think there's lots of huge possibilities for the marketplace, especially. For those who want to learn more, visit catalyze.one, and they also have a great Twitter you can follow. And in the next few weeks here, soon we should be seeing the SNS pop up. Thank you so much, Ray. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on and sharing all of your insights with us. I think this is a great conversation, so I really appreciate it. Just got a few wrap-up items I want to go through. For those of you who are Code State ambassadors on Zeely, this is the keyword Catalyze SNS. And be sure to mark your calendars and join us next week. We've got Luke Dugdale from the founder of Fund It and Plug joining us, and we're going to be going through his conference talk, so that's very exciting. And also, you know, we have some WhatsApp groups. You can scan the QR code for information. And yes, I'm already talking to Ray about possible bridging, and we would love to bring in things as native as possible, as quickly as possible. And the reason we chose WhatsApp is actually because Cedric knows that it's the preferred platform for like investors and you know, founders, some of the busier people. But ultimately, yeah, we would love to use a bridging solution. That's something I've been really keen on for a while. And yeah, for everyone watching, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon on YouTube so you don't miss these talks. We do them every Thursday. And I think it's going to go all the way until October when we eventually run out of content from the conference. And then there'll be lots of new content coming out for the upcoming conference. So thanks for everyone to join us. And yeah, fight the foot out there and stay bullish. We'll see you soon. Thanks again, Ray.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Take care. Bye-bye, guys.